Now, even though there's so many different ETFs to choose from when it comes to investing in the stock markets, and lots of the popular ones are actually inside of my portfolio right now, as you can see here. I wanted to make a video and share with you guys what I think might be the #1 income producing yet upside potential ETF for investors, especially if they're relatively young. Now, like I sort of mentioned, this ETF offers some income potential from day one, but also offers some upside and does it all very tax efficiently. So if you want to see which ETF I think might be the #1 ETF for those investors out there, maybe in their 20s or their 30s, that want some dividends but also want some upside and some solid total return, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into the ETF. If you are a dividend investor who wants to level up your portfolio, you need to be tracking your dividend income consistently. And that's why I created the perfect dividend tracker that I've used to scale my dividend income up to all-time highs over the last year. Now, along with this dividend tracker, you're also going to receive my A to Z dividend investing ebook, which shows you how I personally started from $0 several years ago to now where I earn over $7,500 per month in dividends. So if you want this tracker and the ebook, go to the first link down below in my description and grab it today. Now, the ETF that I think might be a perfect option for investors, especially if they're relatively young, have some time to compound their portfolio, but want some dividend income and want some upside all in one simple ETF. The ETF would have to be DIVO, ticker symbol DIVO, or the Amplify CWP Enhanced Dividend Income ETF. Now, the reason I wanted to make this video and the reason I came up with DIVO is because this is an ETF that I personally have invested into now for several years, and the ETF has basically done everything that a long-term investor would really want out of an ETF. The ETF has offered consistent monthly income, but also it's grown over time, and like I mentioned earlier, has done so very tax efficiently. But I'm going to share with you guys some more of the stats and numbers here in a second, but first let's go through the ETF, understand what DIVO is, how it works, and why this ETF has become so successful. Now, the ETF is brought to us by Amplify ETFs. They make a few other ETFs that are sort of similar, and although I'm not affiliated with them or anything, I do think that they're a really high quality provider. But to not waste any time at all, let's go over to the Amplify ETF's DIVO fact sheet and look into the ETF. It says a proven approach to high quality equity income. DIVO is designed to offer monthly income while providing high risk adjusted returns that correspond generally to the CWP Enhanced Dividend Income Portfolio, or EDIP. DIVO seeks to provide gross annual income of approximately 2 to 3% from dividend income and around 2 to 4% from option premium. Now, that sort of explains a lot about what DIVO does and why I like it so much. It doesn't really have too much of an aggressive approach. It doesn't buy into ultra high yielding single stocks. It also doesn't have some crazy option strategy. It does both at a very conservative level, which offers, like they said, around 2.5 to 3% from dividend income and around 2 to 4% from option premium, which offers investors from day one around 4.5% starting yield. Now, it says reasons to invest: 2 potential income streams. DIVO seeks income from dividend paying stocks and by opportunistically writing covered calls on those stocks. So a lot of times covered call sell ETFs are going to buy into an index and then sell covered calls on that index, where DIVO, on the other hand, buys into single stocks, 24 as of right now to be exact, and then sells covered calls dynamically and opportunistically on those single stocks. Now, it's professionally managed, so there is going to be an active manager that's going to be doing all this for you. Again, you and I can, and a lot of you guys probably do, I mean, I do sell covered calls on our portfolio, but with something like this, you are going to have a professional manager do it for you, and that's going to cost you 0.56%, which isn't cheap, isn't crazy expensive. I think it's worth it. Now, number 3 says seeks to lower volatility. Dividend and option income may provide lower share price volatility versus the overall markets during times of broad-based market declines. Now, again, I've held DIVO for several years now. I can't say what's going to happen in the future, but a lot of times when the market's going crazy, when volatility is spiking, DIVO seems to keep it together in the portfolio, at least from what I've seen. Now, the top holdings as of right now, to ones that can give you guys an idea, these are high quality dividend growth names. Names like Caterpillar, United Health Group, Home Depot, Apple stock, Visa, Microsoft, Procter & Gamble, Goldman Sachs, etc., etc. Now, again, there's only 24 different stocks within this ETF, so it isn't going to give you a massive basket of holdings. But again, with that cover call overlay, the portfolio is going to be at least somewhat hedged, which is going to definitely help protect against downside, even though a lot of these names are pretty tried and true, names like Caterpillar, Home Depot, etc. Now, I share with you guys the fact that this ETF, like I said, offers around a 4.5% starting yield, also has grown over time, and also has done so tax efficiently. But what's really important is exactly how much has this fund returned investors consistently, because when you're relatively young, especially in your 20s or 30s, you're going to want to comp on your portfolio and at least keep up with the rest of the market. And DIVO has returned since inception on average around 12.38%, some years more, some years less, but that is very solid, especially for an ETF that offers a very high starting yield from the start. So now that we understand how DIVO, the Amplify CWP Enhanced Dividend Income ETF works, and you guys now have an idea on why I think it could be a great ETF for a relatively younger investor that wants some income potential but also wants some growth upside. To share some more performance stats on the 1 year as of right now, DIVO is up around 20%. Now keep in mind, this ETF, like I said, pays around 4.5% starting yield. It has a cover call overlay on individual names, but it still has grown very consistently even with all that. Now DIVO's only been trading since around 2016, so there's only 8 or so years of historical data, but for the most part, DIVO has been trading either sideways or up and to the right very consistently, even during times of volatility, which once again has made DIVO a staple in my long-term portfolio and is honestly a super good sleep all night ETF that I'm planning on adding a ton more in the next year or so. Now to be specific, DIVO is up around 70% as far as price return goes, and again, that's not including those massive distributions that are paid out monthly. Now to share some of the most recent monthly payouts, DIVO pays anywhere from 17 cents to 16 cents. Then back around a year or two ago, it was paying around 14 cents or so per share per month. Now even at those levels, you're still talking a 4.5 to 5% yield. So either way, the amount of yield that's being offered from DIVO, depending on when you buy into it, is still about 2 or 3 times what you're going to get compared to investing into something like the SPY. So this is also going to be very important if you are an investor out there that isn't necessarily super hung up on income potential, but you are an investor that wants some cash flow generated in your portfolio at least a lot sooner before you retire. Now this could of course be used for things like expenses to pay your bills later on in the future, or you could do what I do and use these distributions every single month and buy more shares of it or other stocks or ETFs across the market. Now the last piece of data that I want to share with you guys is that over the last 8 or so years, a $10,000 investment into DIVO would have returned around $25,500 more or less, and this is with dividends being reinvested along the way. Now this equals around a 12.44% average annual total return, or around 154%. Now I know there's other stocks and even ETFs across the market that have offered much higher and much lower total returns and average annual total returns at that, but DIVO gives you exposure to a small basket, a high quality small basket of holdings, and then with the cover call overlay allows you to have some exposure to income potential right from day one, which could be something a lot of newer investors might be interested into. But with that, I do have to say that if you are an investor that's very concerned with dividend income, or if you're an investor that's very concerned with growth potential, then maybe DIVO isn't necessarily the right ETF for you as a long-term holding, because it honestly sort of offers a good amount of both, but doesn't necessarily do either in a very extreme formats. But for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this video, you're not necessarily super concerned with getting rich overnight. You want to buy into something that's going to compound over the years and sleep well at night along the way. Now, even with all that being said, the true perfect ETF for any specific investor is going to be the ETF that's going to meet all the needs, wants, strategy, objectives that specific investor is looking for. And what's so great about investing in 2024, almost 2025, is that there's truly an investment vehicle out there for every single investor, whether you're someone like myself that favors some income but also some growth potential, or if you're an investor that doesn't care at all about income and just wants to invest into a growth rocket. There's ETFs with strategies and objectives that are going to meet your needs, I promise you. Just do some research, look around, and find whichever one works for yourself. So now that we went over one of my favorite ETFs personally, and an ETF that I think could be a perfect mix of income and growth potential long term, I lastly want to hear from you guys down below. Are you personally invested into DIVO as of right now? Let me know yes or no in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.